to another episode of the Curious Creatures Drawing Workshop. So today we're going to be designing a creature based on a reindeer, an ant and a mammoth with 4 legs, 2 ears and a set of antlers that lives in a desert and eats cactus. And these prompts have come from a recent workshop with Unley Library. Alright, so looking at our references here, we have a reindeer. Now, reindeers grow these beautiful antlers, and antlers, unlike horns, actually grow and fall off every year, whereas horns obviously are there permanently. Our second line, we have our ants, and on our bottom line, we have our mammoth. Now, obviously, the mammoth is extinct and is a long lost ancestor of today's modern elephants. All right, so let's get drawing. So let's start with sort of an oval shape just here. So just like always, we're going to start with an indication here for the head, and then we're going to work down to a bit of the spine. So I'm thinking, just going to do kind of a curvy line like that. There's a bit of an idea for a spine here. Now I quite like the sectioning that we get with ants. So I think just going to add in sort of a long kind of curvy rectangle in just here. All right, and this is going to be kind of our middle section of the body, which all of our legs are going to link up to. And then let's kind of add this kind of a shape. So at the moment we're kind of playing with sort of ant type proportions, just as a starting point. And then let's add in our indicators for our legs. So just there and there. Now I'm thinking just going to roughly lock in some feet here. Now I'm just going to put in the side that we can see at the moment, and we'll add in the other side once we've got a little bit further on. So obviously these are the legs that are closest to us at the moment. So I probably just need to make that one a little bit longer. Just a bit more like that. All right. Now let's just add in a bit more detail on the face. So remember, as always, draw nice and light because we're going to be drawing over a lot of lines. There's a lot of construction lines going on here at the moment. So right here, I'm just putting on a bit of a muzzle almost, kind of getting that longer, narrower face that you can see in the reindeer. And then I just put kind of sort of a half circle here. So this is very common on deer and reindeer. It's where sort of their mouths are. They don't have a very large, long mouth. It's all kind of sitting in this small area here, and then all up here would be your cheek muscles. Let's just put that there, and then let's put the eye up here. A bit like that. Now the antlers. So we're definitely going to have some antlers. But unlike the reindeer antlers, I think maybe what we'll do is we'll put a lot of emphasis in these forward branches of the antlers. So whereas a reindeer have these very big, large ones up here and a small little branch at the front, we're going to do the opposite, and we're going to make it very detailed here at the front. Because what I'm thinking, so I'm trying to think about how this creature is going to survive in its environment because it's a desert environment and it eats cactus. Maybe it uses its horns, sorry, his antlers, to help dig up and pull up cactuses from the ground. Don't know, not sure yet. We'll see how we go. So you can kind of play around with this in whatever kind of shapes you like. And again, we're just going to put the first one in at the moment. We'll worry about the rest a little bit more as we go. But the reason we have to put this back one in is we need to obviously have kind of a counterweight to it. Otherwise, it's just going to always fall forward. All right. And do we have a tail? No, I don't think we have a tail on this character. I think we've got this big sort of abdomen section, so that is going to be fine. All right, let's start adding in some extra detail. Now, I'm thinking these legs are going to be a bit more reindeer-like. So we're going to have kind of a nice sort of curvy triangle shape here, so nice and strong kind of upper section. And then we're going to have this sort of more narrower section down the bottom with a little bit of a detail here, which is called a forelock. And then we're going to end in a bit of a hoof scenario, but maybe we'll make it a slightly larger hoof. So just something like that. Just put a little bit of fur in there as well. And we'll do the same for the back leg. Now here on the back leg, this section up here is actually, so the hip's actually back here somewhere, going forward and connecting to the knee. And then we're going to come back here, have this nice narrow section, and then kind of going into the hoof down here. So I'm just using lots of basic shapes, lots of triangles and rectangles. Doesn't have to be perfect because this is obviously our first round of sketches. Something like that. All right. Now let's work out what's happening here on this neck connection. So I think a bit like how we have the ant, I kind of like the connection points of the ant. They have this sort of almost narrow kind of connection points in between the different sections of the body, which I think is pretty cool. So let's do that. So we're going to have kind of a narrower neck, and then we're going to come into the body section here. But we're going to make this section a little bit more reminiscent of what we would have in our reindeer or even our mammoth in relation to connection points. So just going to kind of make that a curvy section here that almost, oh hang on, kind of goes up almost as if we were going to connect this dot here with this, all right? And then we're just going to kind of come back in and just connect it just above the knee there. All right, and this is just to do with the way muscles connect in animals. It's just something like that. We probably won't see it all, so it doesn't matter if this is not perfect. We probably won't see it all because there's probably going to be a lot of fur going over the top. Now here at the back, our mammoth and our reindeer both have quite strong, they almost look a bit like shoulder blades. So I think on the reindeer it's definitely a shoulder blade, but on our mammoth it may be more of a sort of a spinal arch there. So let's give it this kind of bit of a, almost like a hump or a lump, and then just kind of curve it down. We'll just kind of curve it off there. So in a way it almost looks a bit like a jelly bean or a peanut almost, something like that. And then let's come in with our connection point again. So it almost is looking a bit more like this abdomen is almost going to be like a big giant tail, but it's not necessarily going to be super furry. So let's just kind of just refine that connection point I mean, at the moment it almost looks a bit like a beaver tail, but without all the extra detailing on it. So let's also add in, so ants have these sections. So these different sections that kind of cross over each other. A bit like some of the armor plating that we get in, you know, some of the like armadillos and things like that. So it's just to give it a bit more flexibility. All right, so let's add those sections in. Cool, something like that. Let's go with that. All right, so at this stage, I think let's add in. Oh, this leg is very long compared to this. All right, guys, I'm sorry. We're going to have to change this. I know you've just drawn it. But this is just not quite right. I think this leg needs to be quite a bit longer. So don't worry on your own drawing if you can't make it a little bit longer. It's not a problem. Yours might look better than mine. I was just thinking it just didn't quite work. There we go. That looks a little bit better. They look a little bit more in proportion now. I'm just going to tweak that a little bit as well. All right, so let's add the other ones in. So again, with this one, we don't have to go too far, imagine too far out. We're just going to kind of just offset this design just a little bit from the ones we've already done. So these limbs from a little bit from what we've already done. So we don't have to redesign them too much, which makes it a little bit easier to draw. All right. So something like that. Sure. Sorry guys, just changing my mind, thinking about it all. This one, I want us to come down. All right, so I'm imagining my shoulders here. We're going to come down in this kind of triangular shape here. And I'm going to have this one again resting on the ground as well. So this one's going to be, because this is our back arm or front leg, this is going to be in line with our back leg. So you can just make sure, you can imagine there's a ground line there if you want. And we're just going to put that in here. And we'll just have that curvy little forelock there, or whatever I called it. Okay. All right, now I'm just going to erase just a couple of my lines. You don't need to do that, but I'm just going to do it so it's a little easier for you to see through a few of my lines, not too many of them though. Actually, and while I'm doing that, I've decided I don't like this front bit. So I'm just going to change it just slightly, not too much. There we go. All right, let's come back up to the head. Now, we have 4 legs, so we've got our 4 legs, so that's fantastic. We have our antlers, or one of our antlers. We'll put the other one in a second. But we need to put in 2 ears. Now, mammoths, unlike elephants, they have big ears, but they're not as big as the ears of like an African elephant or even our Asian elephant, because obviously they lived in a much colder time period, so they didn't need to use their big ears as a way of cooling themselves down. So they didn't need anywhere near as big. In fact, that's why they're covered in fur. They needed to stay warm. So we won't probably add in super big ears. And in fact, maybe what we'll do is maybe we'll actually stick with the reindeer ears, because I reckon that's probably going to be a little more relevant for our creature. So let's just put in some nice little reindeer ears, because they're both going to be about the same size. There we go. And we can now add in our second set of antlers. And again, we can just kind of, if you want, you can completely redesign one antler to the other if you want to. Otherwise, we're just going to offset it slightly, which just makes it a little bit easier for the purpose of drawing. Okay, so one antler, two antler. All right, so let's spend a bit of time on our face. So what have we got? So let's add in a bit more of a defined brow here, which is what we've got on the reindeer. But let's maybe add in some of that extra fur, maybe that very furry cap that we get on the mammoths. So just up here, almost but not quite covering our eye. You can put a bit of extra detailing in around our eye here. All right. And now we're going to come down to our mouth. Now, I think maybe we'll keep with the reindeer at the moment, and we'll put in their big noses here. Just like that. We can give them a bit of a smile if you want. And then we can just put in his little bit of a jaw there. Whatever expression you want to give your reindeer. Or your creature, rather. Alright. So we've got that. But I'm wondering if we should also put in some tusks or some mandibles, something in the front of the face. Nothing crazy, because obviously we've got these big giant antlers. We don't need anything super big, but what if we just here, just kind of underneath here, just put some slightly curvy tusks, something like that. And we'll do the same from the other side, but what we'll do is we'll curl them in. So maybe they're curling in a bit more like pincers curl in. So we'll curl them in and cross them over the top of each other. Alright, so imagine it's kind of joining from there. Something like that. Lovely. Alright, so we've got all the basics in here now. So now we get to add in all of that extra detail and patterning. So I very much like all the hair. So all the mammoth has lots and lots of fur. It's super furry, as does the reindeer. But obviously this animal's living in a desert. So we don't want it to have too much fur because it's going to get way too hot. So we've got a little bit here up the top, and I think maybe we'll put some kind of coming off the bottom here. Nothing crazy. We don't want him to be super hairy because obviously, as you said, he'd get really hot. But we can just, maybe he's going to have, particularly around the face, he'll have a little bit of fur. Maybe in this head section. Might have a slightly furry face. Maybe it's not all fur. So maybe it's just a little bit of fur here, on around his sort of cheeks and going down to the bottom of his jaw. Maybe he's got like a really cool long kind of goatee. It's a little bit more goat-like, but why not? Something like that. Maybe he has a little bit of fur, very short fur up there. And maybe around the face, maybe it gets a bit longer and then kind of shortens off a bit. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I quite like that. We'll get a bit longer on the top here as well. Got a couple bit of layering of fur going on. Maybe we make it really hard for him to see. Maybe his hair acts a bit like the eyelashes on camels and things like that, so it doesn't get too blinded in the sunlight. But then we're going to come to the middle section and his legs. Now we've already got a little bit of fur going on down here in the hoof section, but we probably don't want him to be super hairy. So maybe what we'll do is we'll bring in a little bit of that ant look. So maybe some of it's a little bit more exoskeleton-y kind of stuff. So maybe up here we'll just create maybe a couple more like connection points almost. And then from here his legs can have a little bit of fur. Not as furry as his face, but maybe there's just a bit of fur coming up there. So maybe it's like short hair. A bit like that. And then we've got a little bit coming off of the legs, but just not too much, all the way down. Something like that. And then we can do the same for the back leg, the hind legs. So just break that silhouette a little bit and just create some shapes that kind of go over. So we'll just create this, and remember when we're drawing fur, we always want to draw this fur going down because we're going down with gravity. So if it was very tough spiky hair, it could go up, but that's not the kind of hair we're creating at the moment. So we want it all to kind of flow downwards. And obviously if our character was moving, we could always have the hair going backwards to show that they're running fast. But at the moment he's not, it doesn't look like he's going anywhere too quickly right now. All right, so that is that. So let's work out what we're going to do here. So maybe we want to do similar to what we've done here. We've got our big sections on our abdomen. So let's break this up. We've already kind of started to break them up into a few bits. So maybe we'll just curve this around a little bit more. And we'll create these up into a couple of sections as well. Maybe we'll have another one here. Why not? You can have a play, so you can do any kind of shapes you want. That looks kind of interesting. And maybe because I randomly happened to do it, maybe we'll just put a little bit of fur in between each of these sections. All right, and then let's do the same for the back. So let's have some of this furry hair, our sort of mammoth type hair, coming out just between the different sections of our abdomen. Yeah, something like that maybe. I'm just going to put some lines on here just to kind of show that it's curved, just to maybe it's sort of shiny as well. So you might want to think about that if you want to take it into color. This is also the time if you want to add some patterns. So you could put some patterns in the more exoskeleton sections of our character. Now none of the animals we're using have any defined patterns like spots or stripes, so you can add in whatever you like. So maybe you might want to put in some spots or some zigzags or anything you like. So you could do something like that. I actually don't mind that. I might just keep that. That's kind of cool. I like it. Probably wouldn't be quite so circly. They'd probably be a little bit more wobbly, but that's okay. Maybe I'll just kind of pull in a little bit of ladybug in here or something. Why not? And so I think I'm just going to add that into all of my little exoskeleton sections. And I reckon even though, yeah, I reckon why not? Let's put some on the face. Now the ones on the face aren't going to be as big as the ones further back because obviously we've got a lot more space here. So they're going to be a lot smaller and more finely detailed on the face. Okay, and you see that with a lot of animals like zebras and giraffe and cheetahs. Anything that has big patterns all over the body, it gets a lot more smaller and refined the further along the face it gets. And maybe on the ears as well. All right, so let's start thinking about environment. So we live in a desert. So what have we got in the desert? Well, obviously we've got cactus because our creature eats cactus. So let's think about maybe let's put some cactuses in. So let's put in some different cactuses. So I'm going to add in just a couple of different cactuses here. I might put in a golden, I think they're a golden orb cactus. And kind of have these beautiful bright sort of golden yellow bowls with sort of almost like a yellow green kind of coloring, and they've got this spiral of spines that kind of come out all the way around it. They're pretty cool, and then you get these little flowers and things right in the middle section here. They're pretty cool. What else? We've got, just going to put some little wiggly lines there. Maybe it's sand or things. You've got cactus that are a lot more straight, so they kind of come up, ooh, in a very unstraight line. They kind of come up almost to this sort of curved point, and then they come back down again. And they normally grow in clusters as well. So let's add in some of those. So I'd recommend having a look and doing a little bit of research. There's so many really cool cactus and succulents that are out there, and I'd say we could probably do succulents in here as well in a desert region. All right, and they've got these kind of grooves, almost corrugated grooves that help direct any rainfall of water all the way down to the root sections, which is pretty amazing. And then obviously they've got sharp spines and spikes all the way down. Now, if you want, you can draw your character munching on some cactus if you want. So obviously at the moment we've just drawn the character kind of as is. He's not doing too much right now, but you could always maybe add in, you could have him chewing some cactus, or maybe he's got cactus stuck in his antlers. In fact, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll stick some cactus in his antlers. That sounds pretty cool actually. Let me just add in couple more spines here. Now there's no rush here, you can take however long you like, and you can go as detailed or as simple as it takes your fancy. So maybe what I'll do, maybe I'll change this one and I'll make it look as if maybe someone's taken a big bite out of it. And I'll just adjust this slightly to show that maybe he's eating some cactus and maybe there's some water dripping out. Not that water generally just drips out of cactus. It's not often how it goes, but maybe because he's chewing and everything is all coming out. And maybe he'll have a bit of cactus hanging off of his antlers, maybe, with some spines still stuck on it. Maybe at the back he's got like, maybe he's got like a small one kind of attached. Maybe he stabbed his antler through one to pull it off, which would be pretty cool. Although I don't know how he's going to eat it from there, but that's a worry for another time, I think. So let's maybe say there's a big hole. Maybe he's pulled it out of the hole. So if he stabbed it, maybe from down here we'd have some roots that's pulled out of the ground. So he's pulled the whole plant out. He's pulled the whole cactus out. So now there's a dark hole in the ground. Something like that. Who knows? And then we can add in some extra details. So you can go as detailed as you like. So I'm just putting in a little bit of ground. Now with a desert, we have a couple of different options. So a desert can be sandy or it can be filled with rocks and gravel. It's really up to you. So there's lots and lots of deserts. Obviously we're doing a hot desert or an arid region rather than a cold barren wasteland, which is, technically Antarctica is also a desert because it doesn't get very much rainfall, and that is what makes a desert a desert. But we're doing more of an arid desert here, so more what we potentially traditionally think of. So I'm just putting in some shapes. Maybe I'll put in some rocks. I've just put in some sort of almost hoof prints kind of going back in space. So we can see that he's walked over here. Maybe we can see maybe he's just stepped out of that hole there. In which case there should be another one there. Thereabouts, something like that. Maybe we can add in some extra animals as well. So we could put in some lizards or some birds flying in, maybe some hawks or eagles or vultures or any kind of bird life that you might want to have. We can also put in a bit of a horizon line here, so I might do that. Let's kind of give our design a little bit of a space setting, or a setting in space rather. So here's kind of like our horizon line. So then we can add in extra detail. So maybe in the background there are canyons or big cliffs. Not that big, that's a very big cliff. Cliffs or something. And we're just gonna, so what I'm doing here, this is obviously still very far back in the distance, but it's overlapping that big kind of pinnacle in the background, because the closer things are to you, the taller they are. The further away, the shorter they are in the distance. And that's a bit of perspective stuff. So don't worry about that. That's just a little bit of extra info for you. So we're just doing some overlapping just to get an idea that things are going back into space. So something like that maybe. So maybe what else can we do? Well, I should probably put in some other cactus in here somewhere. Maybe we'll show that's kind of, you can see how big the other cactus are. So sometimes if you want to give an idea of perspective, we can draw the same things that we've got in the foreground, but we can obviously draw them. They go smaller and smaller as they go back in space. So that gives us an idea of how close and how far things are from us. And that helps us to do with scale. So something like this. I think this is all way too close. Let's push this all way further back. So just in front of the horizon line, something like that. Don't worry if this is getting a little bit too complicated. You can do it whatever you like. What else could we add? Well, maybe we want to add in some other herd animals. So maybe we could put in some other animals in the background. Maybe his herd is coming up to join him, or I don't know, have a think. Whatever you think you might like to do. It's entirely up to you. You can have lots of fun with this. There's no hard and fast rules. It's all about being creative. All right, guys, I'm getting kind of lost down the track of doing these cactus. Um, but yeah, all right, I'm going to leave it there before I get too stuck down this pathway of desert creatures. So from here, you guys can take this into color, or you can keep working on it. Maybe do a series of different creatures. So maybe take these prompts and change them the other way. So we did a very ant-based creature. Maybe you could turn it around and make it a bit more mammoth. So more of a traditional body. Maybe you could give the character 6 legs instead of 4. So you can have lots of fun with this and kind of come up with whatever you want to do. So remember, if you would like your drawing to be featured in our online gallery, or you want to come up with some of your other prompts that you might want me to use for an upcoming video, just send them through. But otherwise, keep drawing, and I can't wait to see what you guys come up with.